begin the current Daf in Masechta Taanis Daf Zayin, begin 7 lines down at the top of Yommi. We continue with these Agadic teachings regarding the concept of rain, which is the topic of our parak, and that of this Masechta regarding when there's a fast because there's no rain because there's a drought. Something we're going to discuss in today's Daf are the greatness of rain, the benefits of learning Torah for the right reasons and with a group, which we do, Baruch Hashem. Why Torah is compared to fire, water, wine, and milk, which sins cause droughts. Some of the key things we're going to discuss in today's Daf are Lashon Hara, speaking a negative slander about another person, which is forbidden, Trumas and Meisters, which are that which is separated and given to the Kohanim and to the Leviim. So we begin the current Daf. We continue regarding the greatness of rain. The previous Daf we had mentioned the day of rain is greater than Tchias HaMesim. Other Mandam says it's equivalent to Tchias HaMesim. That's why we bring it in the Bracha Mechayim Mesim. And we continue. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Again, continue with the theme of how great is the day of rain. It's like as great as the day that the Torah was given. Why? Because we have a pasuk in the bottom that says Yarav Kamot Likhi. It drips like rain, my teaching. Which we see from that it's comparing lekach, my teaching, to matter, to rain. Now, what's lekach? Rain lekach el Torah. Where do we find that? Shem says a pasuk in Mishlei. Famous pasuk, ki lekach tov nasad lechem, because a good portion I've given to you. Torasi al tazayvu, my Torah you shouldn't forsake. So lekach, it's from the term of taking of a portion, but ultimately it refers to Torah, and you see it's comparing it to rain. Now, Rambam actually says more than that. He actually says it's yoshimim shouldn't be Torah. It's not equal to the day the Torah was given. The day of rain is greater than the day the Torah was given. Why? Shneimah says in the pasuk Yarav Kamoter, it drips like rain, likhi, my teaching. Now, minit lebemi, who are you making dependent on whom? Meaning, you're saying you're comparing likhi, my Torah, you're comparing it like the rain. So when you're comparing it to something, you're saying, wow, he's as great as him. So it's cutting it lebegadol. What's smaller is being dependent on the thing that's greater. You're comparing Torah to say, wow, it's like the rain. So you see the rain, the day that it rains is greater than the day the Torah was given. Relating to the same pasuk, Rabbi posed the following contradiction. On the one hand, the pasuk says, Yarav Kamot Likhi, that my teaching drips like the rain. Now, except the next part of the pasuk says, Tizal Kata Limrasi, that my speakings, Hashem says, my teachings, it flows like the dew, which sounds like more gentle. So what is Torah compared to? Is it like rain or is it like dew? So it says the Gemara, it depends. Im Talmud Chacham Hagen, who if he's an appropriate Talmudic scholar, is Katalas, like dew. Then la, but if not, or if Feu Kamater, then it kills him, it cuts him down like the rain. Rain comes down with a fury, so it depends if he's Hagen or not. Similarly, talking about in the Brisa that it can depend on how you learn your Torah about how it's going to affect you. He says, whoever engages and toils in Torah for its sake, meaning, because this is what God commanded me and not to be called a Rebbe, so Torah becomes a portion of life. It's a tree of life for those who hold on to it. Like it says in the pasuk, it should be healing for your navel. It says the pasuk in Mishlei, whoever finds me finds life. Whoever engaged in Torah not for its namesake, becomes from a portion of death. Like it says in the pasuk, Yarav Kamota Likhi, that it drips like rain, my teaching. But this dripping could also mean killing, and therefore that someone could learn Torah and could kill him. So like it says a pasuk in the Varm. When it talks about the Egla Rufa, it says that they decapitate over there the calf in the valley. So you see that depends on how you learn your Torah. It could either be the greatest thing, or we always know Zelu Mazeh, it could kill you. Now Tais asked the famous question. I think I said how can you tell me that if you learn Shalal Lishma becomes a portion of death? Everyone knows the famous teaching that you should learn Shalal Lishma, will bring you to Lishma. So Tais says there's two types of Shalal Lishma. This that we say that you should always learn Torah, even Shalom Lishma, is that you want to be a Rebbe, you want to be a Rosh Hashiva, Magacheh, people should honor you. So, look what he knows, he finished Shas 17 times, right? Okay, learn it like that. Shemitei Shalom Lishma. But But this we're saying over here, if you learn Torah Shalosh Mo become Yusama Mavis, because you want to learn Likanter. You want to knock people. You want me to say, hey, you know, what do you know already? I can tell you what you're showing me that says, Pink forget what you said. If that's your purpose, then already it's a potion for death. It's not going to be anything good for you. The Gemara continues on this topic. It says, Lacy Mar listening. He says, come, let's go learn. He says, Chalishli boy. I'm feeling faint. I can't learn right now. So he says, okay, let the master say a Gadic teaching that's leicht bezachen. Not really, but it's something that he was able to focus on. Normally he said, Richen says, wasn't mean a pasuk in the Varm, a well-known pasuk, but the context of the pasuk here is talking about that when you're going to lay siege to a city for many days to fight against it, and you're finally going to capture it, so don't destroy the wood, the trees, to chop it down with an axe, because from that tree you're going to eat, so you shouldn't cut it down. And the words of the pasuk are, Ki ha'adam, because the man Eitz hasada. Now, the simple translation of the pasuk actually is, many people don't know this, everyone knows the midrashic Haggadic interpretation of the pasuk. The simple translation of the pasuk is, what, because do you think man is the tree of the field that he's coming in front of you in the siege? Meaning, I understand if you're going to kill the person who's fighting in the war, but why would you cut down the tree who's not fighting? That's a simple translation of the pasuk. But the Gemara asks like a question. Is man the tree of the field? Like, what do you mean? What does the pasuk mean? Ki adam eitz hasada. Ella, rather, it's comparing man to a tree in the field, which we know that man and tree in the field actually have a lot of similarities, more than what we would say right now. Even the shape of a tree is like a human being. But Mishum D'Chsivka, it says in the pasuk, Kivimenu Teichel. It says there in the pasuk because you're going to eat from that tree. So don't cut down the tree. Now the thing is, Uksiv, and it says later on in the pasuk, Isis Ashtis V'Karata. That tree you're going to destroy, and you are going to cut it down. So Haketza. So what is it? What is it comparing the man to the tree? That sometimes you eat the fruits from the tree, sometimes you cut down the tree. So it's coming to compare the tree of the field. That if it's a tree that has fruits, so you're going to eat from it, so you're not going to cut it down. So to Talmid Chacham. If he's an appropriate Talmudic scholar, from him you should eat, meaning you should learn from him. Don't cut him down. But if not, to him you should destroy and cut down, meaning remove yourself from him because he's not an appropriate Talmud Chacham. Which Taisus says also that he says if he's a Talmud Chacham Hagen, learn from him, and when it says Leisichres, don't separate from him to go to another Rebbe. But if not, then don't learn in front of him. The Gemara brings elsewhere that tells us that you could learn from a Talmud Chacham, even though he's not Hagen like Remeir, who learned in front of Acher. I think Gemara brings Chagigit as Vav Meral. So it's very important you say. See, that's only a Talmud Chacham, who he knows to discern, not to learn from his actions. But if you're not a Talmud Chacham, you can't learn from someone who's not appropriate, because you're going to get Fashlap, Noch Geshlap, Noch Yana Mensch, and he's going to take you down. If he's not a Talmud Chacham Hagen, then Oisis Ashkas V'Kuratas. Continue on this theme about how to learn Torah. So Amar Reb Chanina says, "Ma'idus, it wasn't in the pasuk in Mishlei that the pasuk there says Barzel bevarzel yachad, iron with iron together." And this is how Mishlei, it's mashalim, it's parables, is the ish yachad pnei re'ehu, is a man together with the face of his friend. Meaning, just like you have one iron with another iron, that's how a person is to his friend. What does it mean? Let me to tell you, ma barzel said, just like this piece of iron. One piece of iron sharpens the other one. For example, you take one knife on the other, that's how you sharpen a knife. So two Talmudic scholars, they sharpen each other with halacha, that you get better sharpened by dueling it out with your chavrusa. Similarly, Rabbi says, why are the words of Torah compared to fire? Like it says the pasuk in Yommi, a famous pasuk, it says, behold, my words are like fire. Why are the words of Torah compared to fire? I'll tell you interesting drasha. Ma'esh, just like fire, ain't a delik yechidi. It's hard to light a fire on just one piece of wood. You need 2 or 3 pieces of wood together. So too, words of Torah, it's not maintained by an individual without another friend to sharpen him. And behind all the reason, says, he says, "My Dafsir wasn't in the pasuk in Yirmiyah that says, Cherev el habadim, the sword is to the loners, b'noilu, and they're going to be foolish." What does that mean? Cherev al Soneinen shel Tamid HaChachamim. Soneinen we always use euphemistically to the enemies of the Tamid HaChachamim. It really means that to the Tamid HaChachamim themselves, there's going to be a sword. To those who learn Torah by themselves, meaning it's not a good thing. And not only that, they become foolish. Which means a term of a fool. If you learn by yourself, not only is it not good and you become foolish, it's also considered being a sinner. Because says we have a noilu. Says a pasuk in the midrash in the alma v'shechatanu, that which we were foolish and that which we sinned. We see that being a fool is commensurate with being a sinner. Or the Beis Halacha, if you want, you can bring a pasuk in Yeshaya that shows this idea. It says noilu sari tzayin v'gaimer, that the ministers of Tzayim were fools, etc. V'hisru es Mitzrayim, and they misled the Egyptians, which Taya is chayte, someone who's a sinner is someone who is misled. So you see that Asher Chatanu, we see that Menoyalu means also that if a person is going to learn by himself, he's going to be a sinner. Now, the pasuk that we had brought earlier, continuing on this theme most related to when a person learns by himself, that he should have others to learn with. So I'm going to have Nachma Yitzchak. It says, Lomanim shel divrei Torah k'eitz. Why are the words of Torah compared to wood? Because it says a pasuk in Mishlei, it's a tree, a wood of life for those who hold on to it. So Lemcha is coming to tell you, ma'etz, just like wood. Katan ma'bekes agadol. The smaller pieces ignite and light up. The big ones, you want to light a bonfire. Every little kid knows this. You got to get the big logs, but then you got to get all these small little twigs and put it beneath the big ones, and it's this lighting the small ones that fires up the big logs. After the scholars, the small ones, they sharpen the big ones because they're always asking, what's this, what's that, what this, what that, and this is the questions they have, and the little kids, they always have these questions, and they don't know, so that sharpens the great ones because they have to think it over again, and that makes them great. And behind Rabbi Chanina is a famous teaching of Rabbi Chanina. He says, I learned a lot from my teachers. But from my colleagues, from my friends, my chavruses, more than my teachers. From my students, more than all, because they question everything that we know, and it forces you to rethink and take a second look and get to a greater depth, and because of your need to express it and to verbalize and articulate to them, and therefore you learn more from the Ketanim than from the Gedolim. Related, the Gemara continues regarding teachers and students. Rabbi Chanina bar Papa Rami, he posed the following contradiction. On the one hand, the pasuk says in Yeshaya, "Likris tzamei," towards the thirsty one, he saw you mine. You should bring water. It sounds like you have to bring the water to the thirsty one. Now, Ksiv, there's a pasuk in Yeshaya that says, "Hoi kol tzamei," woe, all those who are thirsty, l'chul hamayim, go to the water. It sounds like he should go himself to the water. So, do you bring water to the thirsty, or does the thirsty go to the water? So, it says the Gemara, depends. Im Tamid Haganu, if he's an appropriate student, meaning that he wants to learn from you, liquor sameh he saw you mind. To the thirsty one, you bring the water. The mitzvah is on the Rebbe to go to the student. But if the student's not Hagun, then hoikal tzameh l'chulamayim. Then whoever's thirsty, go to the water. Let him go to the teacher. The teacher has no responsibility to go to that student. The Gemara has another contradiction. Rabbi Chanina bar Chama Rami, he posed the following contradiction. Ksiv, on the one hand, it says the pasuk in Mishlei, Yefutzu ma'inasecha chutza, that your springs should expand outward. But there's another pasuk right after that says, Yiluchol avadecha, should be only for you yourself. So should you be manifesting into the world and sharing with everyone you know, or should you keep it to yourself? Says the Gemara here also. In Talmud Hagamu, if he's an appropriate student, he's a good protege, let you spring forth with your springs outwards and tell him the secrets of the Torah. But if he's not, should be only for yourself, like the pasuk there ends over there, and let no foreigners be with you, because it's not appropriate to share the secrets to that inappropriate student. Continuing with a pasuk we mentioned before, another drash, it says, why the words of Torah compared to water? Where do we find this? It says the pasuk we quoted before. All those who are thirsty go to the water. Obviously, is a reference to Torah. Why is Torah compared to water? When we have to tell you, just like water, it leaves a high place, it goes to the lowest place. Meaning certain liquids will be sticky, whatever, but water just flows down to the bottom. After we tell you so to the words of Torah, it's not maintained only by someone who is humble, who is low down. That's where the words of Torah will be received in the receptacle. If a person wants to be maintaining the words of Torah, he has to have his das, his consciousness to be shuffled, to understand that he's just a receptacle for God's divine wisdom, and that's the type of person that will be able to maintain words of Torah. That's why Torah is compared to water. Additionally, it says the Gemara, it says, why is the Torah compared to the following three beverages, the following three liquids? B'mayim, with water, b'yayin, and with wine, u'b'chalav, with milk. So whenever you think about Torah, like everything's Torah, fire, water, milk, wine, it's like, why do we have all these references? And where do we find this? Because it says in the pasuk, well, all those who are thirsty, go to the water. It says there at the end of that pasuk, it says, go and buy and eat. Go and buy without money and without a cost, which that's a reference to Torah, where Torah you don't give it anything, and it teaches you and you learn everything from it, so it's like it doesn't even cost you anything. And yain, no, it's schar limit. I'm saying that's for the devil. But Torah line costs nish. And yain v'chalav, and wine and milk, so you see it's compared to water, wine, and milk. To tell you, just like these three beverages, it's all maintained in the most, the lowest types of vessels, which are earthenware vessels. That's where you keep them in. So the word of Torah is only maintained in someone who's humble. Meaning, you would think an arrogant person, someone that's very proud, would be a good receptacle for Torah because it's pride. No, it's to the contrary. Just like these liquids, you only keep them in earthenware vessels. You don't keep them in something that's metallic or something that's a more higher quality vessel. You want the lowest vessel. That's how Torah is maintained. And a related teaching, which is the same idea, but just through one certain medium, is a famous story. The daughter of the Caesar, said to she gave him a dish. Such beautiful wisdom, in an ugly vessel. This is saying you're an ugly guy, but you're so smart, you're just so ugly. So he said to her like this. Obviously, he's very smart. He told her, Avicha Rami Chamra B'mani Dapachra. Says, your father, he's playing around with her, says, your father put his high quality wine in these earthenware jugs. So what are you telling me? Your father does the same thing. He takes these $20,000 wines and he's putting into these low class earthenware jugs. So Amalek said to him, so what should we put in? I mean, if not earthenware, doesn't that everyone do? He says, yeah, but Amalek said, you're respected, you're distinguished, you come from a long line of nobility, you're from the Caesar, your wine should be in vessels of gold and silver. What is this, in earthenware vessels? So she went, she told her father, says, yeah, this is not appropriate for our family. We have a coat of arms, we have this, why are we putting our wine in earthenware jugs? So they put their wine into gold and silver vessels. They takif, and it's sour. So Asvamli, they came and they told the Caesar. So Amalek said to his daughter, who told you that we should put our wine in these gold and silver vessels? So Amalek, the rabbinic sage Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg told us. So he called him. Amalek said to him, why did you tell my daughter to put the wine in these gold and silver vessels? Amalek said to him, just like she told me that jab of it's a beautiful wisdom in such a low-class vessel, Amrila, that's what I told her. I said, what do you mean? Just like wine is actually safeguarded in a kli mechur, in a ugly vessel, so Torah is only maintained in me, actually because more than had I been beautiful. That's why I have that great wisdom. Which, says the Gemara, the daughter of the Caesar asked Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, there are beautiful looking people that are well versed and well learned. There's a very controversial Gemara right over here. As we get into the base, he says to her, if those who are smart people had they been ugly, they would have learned more. Rashi says it's not possible for a beautiful person to humble themselves, and therefore they forget their learning. Taisus says that it doesn't mean you have to be ugly per se. All beautiful people listen up, right? If they would despise the beauty, then they would have been greater Talmidei Chacham. But if you're all into your beauty, then that takes away from your wisdom, and therefore he was basically telling her, don't disrespect me by telling me that I'm ugly. It's because of that I'm such a smart person. But be that as it may, the Gemara says that's one interpretation why it's compared to these liquids. It's just like they are the lowest class vessels that maintain these three liquids, so too, the words of Torah are maintained only in someone who's daita shvala, someone who's not a beautiful person, someone who's a lowly vessel. He'll hold that Torah better. The Bacha, a different interpretation is just like these three liquids. What creates a problem for them is when the person is not conscious about them, because if you don't protect these three liquids very well, they're going to spill out, or something disgusting is going to fall into them, and then you're not going to have to drink these liquids anymore. You know, certain things, you have the 5-second rule, you could eat it or whatever if it fell down. These three things are more than, let's say, oil or honey, where those liquids, since they're thick, so whatever, something schmitzig, something dirty fell in, it'll float to the top. And you could take away just that little thing and you could throw it out. And the bottom will be clean, and you'll be able to, you know, drink that honey and that oil. But these clear viscous liquids they're very thin, and they get, if you don't pay attention, it's ruined. You have to throw out the whole thing. It's only forgotten if a person removes his consciousness, which Rashi says a big yisoid, which if you're not constantly reviewing, you're learning. That's called Hesach Hadas. It's the famous Rambam Adyoy Moisa. You have to be learning it constantly at all times. If not, like these three liquids, you don't pay attention, then you're going to forget your learning. That's the same thing. Then it's ruined, and you're not going to have the words of Torah. Going back to this theme of rain, again, how great is the day of rain? So Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg says, again, the same theme that we started with the Daf, which we had at the end of the previous Daf. How great is the day of rain? Which our gear says ki yom, the Bach says mi yom. It's greater than the day shenibru shemayim ba'aretz, that heaven and earth was created. Why? Where do you see this? Shenemakot says the pasuk in Yeshayim says harifu shemayim mimal. The heaven drips from up above. Ushchakim yizlu tzedek, and the heaven flows righteousness, charity. Tiftach eretz, the earth opens up. The yifru, which obviously you can tell that's a mashal for the rain. Just to spell that out. The way it's just in more in a poetic way of saying it. Then the earth opens up. The Yifru Yesha with Stalka, and it's fruitful with salvation and charity. Tasmiach Yachad, it sprouts together. Ani Hashem Barasim, Am Hashem who created it. Now, Barasim Loi Nema, it doesn't say I created them. If you said them, it would sound like it's going on Shchakim, which are the heavens. It says El Barasim, right? I created it. What's it? It's going on the Tal and the Matter. Which obviously we see from there that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mishtabeach, and he's glorifying with the rain of the heaven more than the heavens themselves that he made. So you see, greater is the day of rain more than the day that heaven and earth was created. That same pasuk that we just quoted, the Gemara brings Amar Avayishi, it says, great is the day of rain. Shafil Yeshua part of it of the way. Not only does the grains, let's say, sprout, even salvation is fruitful and multiplies. Whereas Rashi says, those who are the defenders of merits come in front of Hashem on the day of rain, that the Jewish people should be recalled for salvations at a time of Ratzon, which is what rain is. Which that's what the pasuk is saying. Shemach says the pasuk, Tiftach Eretz, the earth opens up, the Yifru Yesha, and it's fruitful for salvations. And when is that? That's at a time Shashchakim Yizlu Tzedek, that the heavens are flowing with Tzedek, which is referring to the rains. Amar Tanchum Marchanilai says, Eina Gesham Yardim says, the rains do not come down only if the sins of the Jewish people are forgiven. Why? Chanel, like says the pasuk in Tehillim, says Retzisa Hashem Artzecha. Hashem, you desired your land with water, which is the rain. Shavta Shvus Yaakov, you have returned the captives of Yaakov. V'nosasa Avoyna Mecha, and you have forgiven, you have carried the sins of your people right away. Chesisa Kal Chatasim Sela, you have covered over all their sins forever. So you see that the Neserius oven, the forgiving of the sins, is at the time that then Hashem is going to be Ritzisa of the Artzecha, with giving water, with coming out with the rain. Amalei Zir Midahavas Lavina, which Rashi said that it's not the regular Ziri, that's what says Zir Midahavas, because the one who always called him Ziri was from the earlier ones. Ravina was the end of the Gemara, and they never saw each other. So it's Ziri from the Havas, he said to Ravina, he says, you learned it out from this pasuk you just quoted. But Anan, we learn it from a different pasuk, pasuk Lachem Aleph. So Va'ata, now you Tishma Shemam, you heavens listen. V'salachta lachatas v'geimer, and you forgive for the sins, etc. And what does the pasuk say over there? V'nasata matar al artzcha, you're going to give the rain on your land, which was by the prayer of Shlomo Melech. So you see again that after the forgiving of the sins, that's when the rain comes. Rain only comes when the sins of the Jewish people are forgiven. Now, the the Gemara brings many different things that why would the rains be held up? So the rains are not held up only if the quote unquote euphemistically the enemies of Jewish people, referring to the Jewish people, only if they're liable to be wiped out. That's when the rains are held back. Because this is the pasuk in Iyov. Tzia, gam chayim, dry and also hot. Yigzlu me'misheleg, they rob the waters of the snow. Sha'ol chato, in the depth they have sinned. What that means to say is, when it's dry and also hot, they're stealing the waters of the snow, meaning that the rain is not coming down as it normally does. Then you should know that sha'ol chato, that they have sinned, and therefore they're chayiv for being wiped out, and that's why the rain doesn't come. Now, only Zir Midahavas Ravina says, Atun Mahochamas Nidma. Again, he tells him, you learned that from this pasuk. And then Mahochamas Nidma, we learned that from a different pasuk, a famous pasuk in Devarim, in Kriyishma. It says, Va'atze es hashamayim, and the heavens are going to be closed up. And it says in the pasuk, V'lo yimot, there's not going to be rain. And what does it say shortly? Va'vadete meher, you're going to be quickly wiped out and chased out. So you see that the kaloya is that liability is what prevents the rain from coming. Now, the Gemara again continues with 5 different sins that can be the cause of a drought. It says, the rain is not held up, only because people don't give the trumas to the kahanim and the maises to the Leviim. Like it says, the pasuk we quoted. Tzia gamchaim, the dry and also the heat, Yigzlu me'mishalik steals the waters of the snow. Now, it says, what do you see from there? Anything about Trumas and Maises? So, Tan Rabbi Shmuel is torn the Bais Rabbi Shmuel. You have to interpret this in Drash Bishvil Dvar Misher Tzivisi Eschem. So that's the word Tzia, the word commanded. Be'yemaisachama, that's what Gamchama, meaning that which I command you in the summer months. Although I see something you didn't do, that's Yigzlu Mikem Me'mishalik B'maisak Shaman. That's what steals from you the waters of the snow in the winter. So what do I command you in the summer months? That's Trumas Hamaisis, because that's when you did the harvest. That steals the waters of the snow, which is the rain in the winter. So that's how you see that the rain stopping is from not giving Trumas Hamaisis. Another sin, Rabbi Shimon Pazi says, the rain's not held back. It's only because of those who say slander and negative things about other people. Like the pasuk in Mishlei. Ruach Tzafin, the northern wind, is Techayil Geshem. The word Techayil means to nullify. Like we have a pasuk don't nullify his words when he makes a neder, which the Gemara Yevamah says in Ayin Bezim and Aleph that the northern wind is a very clear wind. So it brings light to the world. So that's what stops the rain, because it's a very clear weather. Upanim is Amin, and a furious face, HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows that it doesn't bring rain to the world, is because Lashon Sasser, because of a concealed word of slander that you're talking about someone else, which the simple understanding of the pasuk is that just like the northern wind stops the rain, so too a furious face is because of this Lashon Hara, but you do see that the Lashon Hara is what's stopping the rain from coming. Another sin, of Salam and Hamnun, he says, the rain's not stopped, because those who have a audacity are of the face, which people that are very audacious. And as upon them, Machutzav, Shlomo says the pasuk in Yirmiyah. Pasuk says that the Yemanu Revivim, and they held back the showers. Umalkei Shlahaya, and the late rains wasn't over there. Umeitzach Isha Zoyna Haylach, and the forehead of a woman who is a harlot, which is a very brazen type of a woman. That's what you had. Etc., where it says, Me'amtihi kalim. And the pasuk says, you refuse to be embarrassed, which you have an asis. The people that they don't care. You show them you really doing something appropriate. Mamish straight face, doesn't bother them. So you see that the Yemanu Revivim, that the rain was held back because Me'amtihi kalim, because the asipan. Now related to this, once we brought in this pasuk, the Gemara continues with the same Amoyer of Amar of Salam and Ramnuna. Says, Kol Ad Mishish Le'aziz Panim. Any person that has this brazenness of the face, Seif Nikashal Bavet, and he's going to stumble and sin. Like it says in that pasuk we quoted, Umetzach Isha Zoyn Haylach, and the forehead of a harlot, of a woman you had to you, meaning you see a Zayna has to do with this guy who's brazen. This guy's going to do something inappropriate. Nachman says, no, not that he's gonna do a sin. A guy who has az upon him, usually people are kind, generous, caring, open, sensitive, vulnerable. This person who's brazen of the face, you see it on his face, you know that he stumbled in sin. The pasuk says, Hayalach. It says that you had for yourself, which sounds like he already stumbled with the Zaina. It doesn't say he will be. And there's a reason why he's brazen, because he needs to defend himself, so that you know that he sinned. He says, any person that has brazenness of the face, you call him a wicked person. Shemak says, it says, Hey ish, the person who has az's panim, you could tell him, Rasha b'fanav, you could tell him that he's a wicked person to his face. And the chiddush in that is that you don't get malchus. Because the Gemara says in Kedushin Daf Chesam and Alf, usually if you call someone a Rasha, they give him lashes. But for this itself, that he's az upon him, you could call him a Rasha. Where Taisa explains that because most definitely he had stumbled in sin, and not only that, he's still rebelling, because you could tell on his face, Hakadas Panav Ansalai, facial expression gives away that the guy is still a Marid b'malchus, because you see on the brazenness of the face, the guy doesn't care. And said, well, this is a God I don't care with that. He walks with this az upon him, you know he's a sinner, and he's still a sinner. You could call him a Rasha just from seeing that of his face. Not only that, Rabbi Shloimy says, you're allowed to hate him. Which a chiddush from that is, although it's about after Echtamoicha, but this guy's a Rasha. Showing to the pasuk in Kehelas. The Eid Panav Yeshuna. So the simple translation of the pasuk is that the mightiness of the face will be transformed, but Al Turki is Yeshuna. Don't call it transformed. Eli Yisane. So although it's written Eid, but it's written without a vav, so you can read it that Az Panav, the guy who is an Az's Panim, Yisane, you should hate. Now, going back to what we were saying, I'm going to continue regarding other sins that could be the cause of a drought. So, the rain is not held back because of not learning Torah, nullifying, of stopping the learning of Torah. Like the pasuk in Kalas, with the laziness, the roof caves in. Now, what does that mean? Because the laziness of Jewish people, because they didn't toil in Torah, so to speak, the enemy of God. But it's like referring to, Kiviyachal Hashem. He becomes weak, as if he doesn't have the strength to bring the rain and the dew down. So, because Mach is always a reference to poor. It's like as if Hashem became poor, as if he doesn't have rain to give. Hashem is imposing Yikra. It says, if a guy takes an Erechim vow and he's too poor for his value for his Erechim, so you evaluate it and you see how much you could give. But you see that's referring to being poor. And the Emakara, like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's the roofer? It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Somebody says the pasuk in Tehillim. Hamakara b'mayim, he roofs the water al yosef in his upper places. So you see that's referring to water. And he's being poor. He can't give rain again because of the person who's lazy and is not learning Torah. Yisrael Mamhachi brings a different source, the pasuk in Iyov. V'ata now le'ra'u or, which or does not mean light. They didn't see or. Baherhu b'shchakim, it's patchy in the sky. V'ruach avnu b'tatarim, and the wind passes and purifies the sky, meaning it removes the clouds, and therefore there's no rain. Now, what's causing that there's no rain is the beginning of the pasuk. There was loy ro or. They are el Torah. Or refers to Torah, like to the pasuk Mishlei. Kiner mitzvah Torah or, because the lamp is the mitzvah and the Torah is the light. And because there's no or, there's no Torah, therefore there's ruach avatam. Therefore it dispersed the clouds. There's no rain. Moreover, when it says in the pasuk Baruch b'shchakim that it's patchy in the sky, it's teaching us how much more this is. It's because Tan b'Bishmal, it's torn by B'Shmal. Even at a time when the sky becomes patchy, which is this some clouds there, it's a partly cloudy day, lahir talamata, that should be dew and rain coming down. Still, it's a punishment because they didn't learn Torah. Ruach avra b'tahar, that the wind passes and it disperses the clouds because because they didn't see the light of Torah. Amir Ami, he says, the fifth one says, in the ksham netzarim, the rains are not held back, only because of the sin of robbery. Somebody says the pasuk in Iyov, al kapayim, with the clouds, kisa ar. Here also ar does not mean light. It actually means something very different. It doesn't mean Torah either. It covers over the rain, as we'll shortly bring a pasuk for that. So what is the pasuk saying? But oven kapayim, where it could be referenced as clouds, but the palms are generally, as we'll see shortly what that kapayim means, it means stealing, is kisa or, that covers over the rain. Because the inkapayim elachamas. Kapayim actually refers to stealing. Somebody says the pasuk in Yomi, from the theft that was in their palms. So you see that refers to chamas, to theft, and that covers over the ar bein ar lamater. Ar is actually the rain. Krishna says a pasuk in Eiv. It says Yafetz, that he will scatter. Which who's going to scatter? The Malach of Afberi, who the Baal Tzvilas know what we're talking about when they down Vagashem Afberi. So that's his name is Yafetz. So he scatters Anan Oiroi, the clouds of his rain. So you see that refers to Matar, and there the pasuk is saying that because of this Gezel, that's Kapayim, that's the Chamas, it covers over the it covers over the rain. So it says the Gemara, okay, Maitakante. So how do we remedy the situation of, let's say the rain is not coming for one of the 5 sins or whatever other reason, how do we get it to come? So Yabet Tefillah, a person should increase prayer. Shlomo says over there in that pasuk in Eiv, it says, Vayitzav, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded Allah on the rain that should come down, b'mavgia, when you daven for it. Where do we see that? Because ve'im pigiyel tefillah. Encountering means davening shenem, like it says the pasuk in Yirmiyah. It says, Va'ata, and now you, al taspal ba'adam azavigaymer. Don't daven for these people, etc. And don't entreat me, which again we had in the previous parsha, a Yaakobinu, that the drush they say is that he davened over there. So we see that for the rain to come, one has to daven. Now, the lady says, the Gemara, Rabami, another teaching from Rabami says, Michael, so it wasn't in the pasuk in Kehelis that it says in the pasuk Imkeya habarzel, if the iron is dull, Bahulei fonim kilkel, and they didn't wet the edge. So the pasuk there ends, even so, v'chayolim yigaber, that the soldiers should be strong, meaning like as if your swords are not so strong, it doesn't make a difference, you should still be mighty. But v'yisn hachsher chachma, better is the preparation of wisdom, being well prepared. So what does this mean? So it says, if you see that the sky is dull like iron, meaning milahir talamater, from having the rain and dew come down, that's b'shvil ma'isa hadar. It's because the actions of the generation. Because they're ruined. Shemek says in the pasuk, "B'hu loy panim," the way the drush is interpreted, and him, not his face, meaning of Hashem, rather kilkil, rather the dar, they ruined it. So matakantan. So the pasuk is telling you, how do you remedy this? They should strengthen themselves with mercy. That's what the pasuk ends over there. And the soldiers yigaber should strengthen themselves by davening. But that's what the pasuk ends. That even more than this is v'yisroin, and more than this is hachsher chachma, is to prepare with wisdom. What does that mean? Kol shekain, all the more so, and hochshur masein mikara, that if their actions would have been appropriate from the beginning, that's what it means v'yisroin hachsher, that more would be if you prepared for in a smart way, if you would have kashered your actions from the beginning, that the rain should come. That's even better than the soldiers who strengthen themselves, where they go to daven at a time when things are bad. That the best response is to be proactive, is to be prepared beforehand, than having to respond when it happens later on. Anytime. 6.